Okay, Megan, here you go with number 3 and 16. Sorry about not getting back to this earlier. Last night I just kind of didn't look at anything. So here's what we do for this one. Okay, first of all, I noticed that, well, the first thing I want to do is, can I divide each one of these terms by the same thing? Um, well, I don't see an x in the last term, so I know that that won't work. And 3 and 2 don't play nice, so that doesn't work. So now I got to try to factor this. So I multiply these two numbers together. So it multiplies to make -6, and it adds to give me this number. Okay, so -6, that means one number has to be positive, one number has to be negative. So I have the choices of -6 and 1, or 6 and -1, -3 and 2, and 3 and -2. Those are my only choices. So the only one that ends up giving me -1 is this one. Okay, so that's my numbers that I'm going to choose. So now I'm going to factor this by grouping. The first 3x squared stays exactly the same, and then I bring in these two, followed by an x, and then the last thing. Now I look at these first two, and I'm going to factor those two. So I can divide both these by 3x. I can take a 3x out of both that. When I do this, I'm left with just x. Here, these things cross off, so I'm just left with 1 because I'm dividing. Now I look at the last two. Well, I can divide both those two by 2. So I'm going to take that 2 out, divide this by 2. All right, so now I have what I call the pairs and spares. The pairs, and then I put together the spares. Now I'll use the 0 property and set both factors equal to 0. This one solves real easy. This one right here is not as easy to solve as the first one. So I'm going to subtract the 2 from both sides and then divide by 3. So those are my two answers for this. So that's question number 3. That's a doozy. That's a great question to ask about. That's a hard one. So now let's look at question number 16. Number 16 looks a little different too. But the first step always is, can I divide both these two terms by something, the same thing? Well, they're both even, so I know I can divide both of them by 2. The other thing is, I notice both of these have an x's, so I'm going to take out an x. So when I divide it by 2, that goes out in front. And let's see here, 6 divided by 2 is 3, and I'll take off one of these x's. So I'm left with 3x. Here, the x's are gone, and that's a 2. All right, now at this point, I don't have any squared terms, so I can't factor it like I typically do. So this is actually factored. So I have two numbers being multiplied together to make 0. Well, the first number is 2x, and the second number is 3x plus 2 equals 0. And now divide both sides by 2, well, I still get 0. This one, same thing as last. I'm going to subtract the 2 and divide by 3, sorry. So those are my answers there. Okay, so I think that's what you needed.